Welcome back to Lit Sports Online. We are here with the UFC 243 Whittaker versus Adesanya recap, and I know my dude Gerald here is pumped.
Yo! Texted you that first thing in the morning, like, yo, did you see the result?
Yeah, I was salty.
Yeah, I didn't actually get to watch the fight live because I was out for my anniversary, but I got to see the fight still nonetheless as impressive as I expected to be. But we're going to talk about that.
We'll get there. It was a great fight,
there.
Man. There was a lot of great fights on this card. There was an undercard with, I think, Riddler versus Malarkey, I think is his name.
Yeah, sure.
It was the fight. There's a dude out of Conor McGregor's camp and a dude out of Israel Adesanya's camp. It was the fight of the night. Wild. It was just gnarly, dude. They just beat the hell out of each other. It was a great fight. I think it was actually one fight of the night, so each guy got $50,000 for their efforts. But
that's awesome.
I think we'll move on to the first fight we covered in the recap video.
Yeah. Let's go on to Tai Tuivasa versus Sergey Spivak. Spivak won via round 2 submission.
Yeah, he did. And it's a bad look for Tai Tuivasa at home.
Yeah.
It's your first fight at home in a long time. You're on a 2-fight losing streak, 3-fight losing streak before this. And you come into this fight with a guy who you know has been doing judo for all of his life. And you have zero preparation or game plan to beat his judo and his takedowns and his grappling. I don't understand. Tuivasa is exceedingly entertaining when a fight goes his way, and his personality's great. He's hilarious. He does shoeies and shit. He's awesome. I love watching him fight.
Yeah. But
this is a super lackluster performance. He just had no answer for Spivak's takedowns and grappling. It's basically he just went in there and was like, either I'm going to knock him out or I'm going to lose.
Yeah.
And that was it. That's his only thought. And it's just... And you hate to see that because, like, as somebody who's looked decent in other fights, Spivak had a great performance, man. Spivak went out there. He had great takedowns. He had great control. And he submitted Tuivasa after landing a big shot on the ground and full mount and moved over and choked him out. And I mean, it was a fantastic performance coming from a guy who lost his first fight in the UFC to Walt Harris. You never want to lose your first 2 fights in the UFC. Like, they might, if you lose your first fight, but it's still a fun performance, they might give you another shot. But if you come in as a new guy and you lose your first 2 fights, especially to another guy who's on a losing streak, it doesn't look great. You're probably getting your walking papers. Tuivasa might get his walking papers. The only thing that saves him is the fact that he's so entertaining. Like I said, when a fight goes his way, it's a super fun fight, and he's gonna say some crazy shit, and he's gonna drink beer out of people's shoes and be an overall Australian lunatic, which is fantastic. But if you can't win fights, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And if you're going into fights at this level in the UFC with no other game plan than I'm going to throw these hands, you're going to lose. You're going to lose to guys who are more worried about winning than they are whatever else. So, great performance by Spivak. I'm excited to see where he goes from here. There's a lot of good options for him to fight. I would like to see him go up against, a little bit of a bigger name guy. Tai Tuivasa isn't, he isn't on the up and up right now, but he's still a relatively big name guy. So, seeing him get up towards your bottom of the top 10 might be fun.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see where he goes from here. Tuivasa, if he doesn't get his walking papers, they'll throw him another bone, and hopefully they give him a favorable matchup just to try to get him back in the good graces. But we'll see.
Yeah. So moving on, we have Iaquinta versus Dan Hooker. Hooker won via decision, but at range, there was no answer from Iaquinta.
No. Iaquinta, it was like I said in the recap video, he had a lot of trouble with Donald Cerrone, who fights at that same kind of range as Dan Hooker, except he's not as long as Dan Hooker. He's not as big a guy as Dan Hooker. And so Dan Hooker fights at even longer range. And Iaquinta just had no answer for, like, the calf kick was really the one that did him, man. Dan Hooker just beat the hell out of Iaquinta's lower leg. So bad that Iaquinta switched stances to southpaw, and you don't see him do that very often. And it's Iaquinta's known for being a just tough as nails dude, and he proved that he still is. He, stayed in the fight the whole time, but Dan Hooker was just more effective, man. Iaquinta just could not get on the inside, could not pressure Dan Hooker enough to get inside like the phone booth like boxing range, and so Iaquinta just had nothing for him, and Dan Hooker beat the hell out of Iaquinta's leg and dominated the fight because of that. It stops you from being able to do anything. It stops you from being able to throw a jab. It stops you from being able to just be effective in any sense.
Yeah.
The first thing you have to do to land a punch on somebody is get your legs in range, or completely lean out over your legs and take a punch on the chin while you're no weight behind you and no balance and screw yourself. But if you want to try to get into somebody's range, the first thing you have to do is step inside a range where your leg is vulnerable. And if you consistently get your leg beat up like Dan Hooker did to Iaquinta, then you have a real hard time establishing that forward momentum and getting into that range and it's setting up any sort of rhythm. If you can't get in there or land a punch, you can't land a punch.
Yeah.
I mean, I
there's
don't know
really
no way
to
Yeah. He just had no answer for it, and Dan Hooker cruised to a decision, and good win for him, man.
Yeah.
Number
Definitely.
15 just beat number 6. That's a huge jump.
That's a huge jump.
He's calling out like Dustin Poirier and I think Gaethje. I don't think he's going to get either one of those guys.
Yeah.
Dustin Poirier just lost the title fight to Khabib, so he's ranked super high. Gaethje's, I think, next in line for a title. I don't think he's going to get either of those fights. It wouldn't be bad to see him get the Barboza rematch, but I think they're going to set up the Barboza versus Paul Felder rematch. But there's a lot of options for Dan Hooker. Iaquinta, man, want to see him get back on that horse, man. I think he needs to focus a little bit more on his excellent ground game out of that Renzo Gracie and Matt Serra camp, and hopefully instead of brawling so much, get a little more technical striking, a little more head movement, see what happens. But great win for Dan Hooker, and Iaquinta's never out of the game.
Yeah. Well, on to the main event, the fight that, I was hyped for when this homie told me that it was coming. Robert the Reaper Whittaker versus Israel, the Last Stylebender, Adesanya. Adesanya won via round 2 KO. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
And this is a historical moment because Adesanya, with that win, became the first African-born undisputed UFC champion, which is pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah. So we said
That's
it.
awesome.
We said it in the fight after the Kelvin Gastelum video. He became the first ever African-born champion.
Yeah.
But it was an interim title.
Yeah.
Now he has the true undisputed
no
title.
question. And he did it. I mean, it was a good fight. I mean, both of them looked great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the way Adesanya moves is so fluid. It's like poetry almost. Like,
yeah.
It's so hard to. I mean, me personally, like looking at him, I'm out there. I'm like, because I always try. Like when I do actually watch fights, like I'm trying to put myself in there. Like, how would I fight that? And it's like there's really no way to go at it unless you shot on him. If you can take him down, because. I mean, I guess obviously he wasn't threatened by Whittaker with a takedown.
No.
So he was just out there. But if you took him down, that could have been a different fight, dude.
Yeah, but I don't think it's an easy feat to take him down.
No,
he has faced people who are good wrestlers.
He's so long.
I think the only one, I think the style to beat Adesanya is going to be somebody similar to like a Khabib. So Khabib Nurmagomedov, you watch him, right? He doesn't fight where he just like blasts a huge double leg and sweeps your hips, pulls your feet out, gets under your hips and pulls you down. He grabs onto your leg, knowing full well that you're going to hop up on the other leg. He's going to back you up against the fence. Then you're going to try to pull your leg out. Then he's going to hold onto your ankle. Then he's going to pull around your hip. It's called chain wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Like he grabs onto your leg, not thinking, I'm going to get this single leg, but I'm going to take you down in about 25 seconds after you make 7 mistakes that I'm anticipating right now. I know that I'm going to get you down, but we're going to be way over there, and you're going to be way more confused than you are right now. That's the style that I think beats Israel Adesanya, is somebody who is going to get in there and just keep pressure grappling, never let that full contact go, and take, because his takedown defense is good. He's not going to get taken down by your standard single leg or your standard double leg or probably most judo throws because he's taller and longer than the other guys. So, he's got a little bit wider of a base to balance on. Granted, if somebody, real stocky can get their hips under your hips, then you're kind of SOL. But Adesanya was just able to control the striking range for the most part. Robert Whittaker has that kind of karate blitz style where he jumps in real quick and lands some big shots and then kind of gets out of there. What we didn't see from him in this fight was that get out of there. Yeah. He got in, and then he just kind of stayed, and he either backed up a little tiny bit in a straight line, or he just didn't back up at all, and Adesanya backed out of the exchange and reset. And so I think that was where Whittaker went wrong. He wasn't, like, jumping in, landing a couple strikes, and cutting an angle to get himself to a safe spot. He wasn't really, like, tucking his chin that much, Yeah. He throws that big overhand right and then just kind of leaves, pulls his arm back and his chin's just hanging out there. And that's eventually what Adesanya found.
Hey, you saw him get tagged quite a few times.
Yeah, and we saw, like, I remember watching the fight and it was just being like, there's that left hook, and that's going to finish the fight in about a minute. Because you saw him land it. You saw him look for it. You saw him almost throw it, and then 15 seconds later he landed it and finished the fight. Yeah. So I think that a big part of the problem was Robert Whittaker's game plan. He just wanted to be the better striker. I think he should have tried to be the more well-rounded fighter, right? Yeah. So what we saw from Adesanya was since Whittaker never threatened the takedown at all, Adesanya was just in full striking mode. He was pulling like Anderson Silva type stuff, where he's just
100%
on his toes with his hips square, just leaning back out of the way and stuff. And he wasn't consistently cutting angles and trying to keep his balance and all that. He was like leaning back to throw shots as Whittaker was stepping in, completely throwing himself off balance to get that torque in the punch. And so I think that if Whittaker had gone for a takedown at some point, Adesanya would not have been comfortable enough to do that and to strike in that way. But Whittaker was content to try to prove his superiority in a realm that Adesanya is a master of, dude. Adesanya has a ton of professional kickboxing fights. Dude turned down an offer from the UFC. His first offer from the UFC for a fight, he turned down because he didn't think he was ready. Wow. Then he gets to the UFC, still undefeated, has a couple tough fights against some tough opponents because he's still kind of getting his feet under him as to his professional MMA career as compared to his professional kickboxing career. Yeah. While most of the striking in MMA is kickboxing sort of adjacent, it's not the same. It's not exactly the same. Your stance has to be different. You have to pay attention to different things because you're looking for takedowns and you're looking for knees and other things that you can't do in a lot of kickboxing promotions. So he had to kind of adapt. But once he did, he's one of those guys who his level of striking is so high and he's so good that I don't think there's anybody who's going to compete with him in that realm. No. I don't see anybody in the division right now.
Not at least.
All. And I think I said this that night after the fight. I was very drunk, but I still was sitting on the front porch just like, guys, I think this is the next Anderson Silva.
I said it when I saw his first couple fights. I was like, this kid's special.
Dude.
I grew up watching Anderson Silva. So it's like, I remember actually I used to have the old iPod Classic. I used to have his videos on my iPod. I used to watch him at community college. And it's like, watching him, watching Adesanya, watching Silva, it's almost like, holy shit, it's just different generations, man. It's crazy.
Silva was the one who got me into UFC, same as you. And because my cousin Mike just was like, dude, you got to watch this. It's like watching Bruce Lee. I was like, okay.
It was insane.
It's crazy. And Adesanya hates that comparison, right? He does not like to be compared to Anderson Silva. He's like, I'm not the next Anderson Silva. I'm the first Israel Adesanya. I'm the first, Fair enough. Yeah. Your styles aren't really the same. No. They just have similarities. They have similarities in a
body
couple
type,
ways. For body type, yes. They also have similarities not in their style of striking, but the fact that they are far and away the best striker in the division and make people look silly. Yeah. And there's a lot of champions, even nowadays, who are dominating fights because their striking is so good. You think of your Yoni and Jacek, who fights this weekend and we'll be doing a preview video. You think of your Max Holloway,
Yeah.
But those people don't have the flashy, highlight reel, insane finishes that you can't believe are happening.
Yeah.
You know, when Adesanya walks up to somebody, lands a right hook, then a question mark kick, then another right hook, and puts him out cold. It's a crazy highlight reel.
Yeah.
The fact that like this card was at Marvel Stadium in Australia, so they did all this cool comic book stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, watching Israel Adesanya's highlight reel with like comic books effects, where his like fists are on fire and shit, is so cool. And it looks just so fantastic. And like the only reason you could do that is because he's an insane
a
striker.
Superhero. He's a real life superhero.
He does the same thing that Anderson Silva
Yeah.
did, where he's so good at striking. He's so good at this one aspect. And typically we see this out of wrestlers these days, like Khabib Nurmagomedov, or Colby Covington, or even like a Cain Velasquez, or, you know, a Demetrius Johnson, who was a phenomenal striker, but most of his game was predicated on the element of surprise. You didn't know whether he was going to strike or take you down. Same with George St. Pierre. And, like, all these phenomenal wrestlers, and then you get a guy like Adesanya or Anderson Silva, where they're so good at striking that they're, like, weird computers. Like, you watch them for the first round of the fight, and you watch Adesanya engaging with Robert Whittaker, and you see Robert Whittaker throwing kicks and missing this much. And you see him throwing big shots and missing this much. You see him landing big shots. You see Adesanya landing some shots. And then all of a sudden you start to notice Adesanya doing the same, like looking for that same thing over and over again. And you're like, oh, he found the pattern. He literally just sat there for the first round, downloaded everything. And even the first round, when he drops Robert Whittaker in the very last second of the first round, I remember we watched it just before we shot this video, and about 45 seconds before the end of the round, he landed that right hand.
Landed it right again.
And I was like, oh! And then
figured it out.
Sure enough, you watched him fake it a couple times, and then right at the end of the round, right down the pipe, cracked him with the right hand, dropped him.
Done.
End of the round.
Like, that was insane.
Fight wasn't over because if that had happened 5 seconds earlier, the fight would have been over.
We said that. I was like, ooh.
Next round
figured it out.
Next round comes out. Whittaker has seen himself get knocked down on the big screen up there while he's sitting in his corner. And he's like, all right, I know that one's coming. So he starts to avoid that one. Comes out, has a little bit more success. And then we saw Adesanya find that left hand. He found it one time. Then we saw him look for it like 3 more times before he actually landed it again. And then the last time he lands it, cracks Whittaker with it, drops him, lands a couple more shots. Undisputed champion. Like I said, dude, he just watches and he just analyzes and and he's just so good at striking that I don't think anybody's going to touch him right now.
No, I think he's going to have a pretty long range. Like, reign.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't see anybody, you know.
The next guy he's going to fight is Paulo Costa, who also undefeated, which in itself, super cool.
Still pretty awesome.
2 undefeated fighters fighting for the championship. Great. We also, fun fact, have 2 undefeated champions in the UFC right now, which is crazy. Khabib and Adesanya. I mean, that's not very normal, but it just goes to show you the level that Adesanya's at.
Like, he's
like,
on a different level altogether.
You look at his like resume and you're like, damn, dude, that dude didn't lose once. And then he fought like Derek Brunson and Kelvin Gastelum and all these crazy dudes, but it was a super impressive performance from Adesanya.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think Robert Whittaker's gone by any means.
No,
I think
he'll definitely.
You know what I'm most excited for? I'm most happy. Not happy this happened, but I really want to see Robert Whittaker versus Kelvin Gastelum. That is such a good fight.
We may get it.
I hope we get it so much. Gastelum's about to fight Darren Till. He's coming up from the welterweight division because he couldn't make weight, and Darren Till is a phenomenal striker with huge power in his hands. So I'm real interested to see what happens with that Gastelum fight. If Darren Till can beat Gastelum, I would love to see Darren Till versus Adesanya because Darren Till has the same sort of background. We came from kickboxing before the MMA. Anyway, Robert Whittaker versus Kelvin Gastelum is a great fight. We already know Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa is going to happen. Adesanya called Paulo Costa out after the fight because Costa had been talking shit in the media for weeks, saying he's going to kill Adesanya in the ring and all this stuff. I don't think it looks like a great fight for Costa personally.
Yeah, he's going to probably eat those words.
We'll see what happens, man. It's an exciting time to be an Adesanya fan and have him as a champ.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you know, when I saw the decision, because I was nervous. I was like, you just don't know. Anything can happen. But when I saw the decision, I was like, oh, that's amazing. I can't wait to talk.
It was a KO.
KO, of course, yeah. Result. Shut up. But yeah, I mean, Adesanya, I don't think anybody's going to take that title away from him anytime soon. So, yeah, we're just going to have to stay tuned to the next fight. But that does it for our episode. We have another. We have actually. We have a preview coming, and we also have another episode of Charm City Beat where me and Jordan talk Baltimore Ravens. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.
UFC Hour, guest starring Gerald in 22 minutes or less, rolling in 5, 4, 3.
Hold on.